Hi, I found some interesting things while we're waiting on Dr. Deagle's show. There was another zombie attack. Here we go.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Another zombie apocalypse attack? What? It's not what you think. I know the Homeland Security has issued this warning. They're spending millions of dollars in an ad campaign to train people how to deal with the zombie apocalypse. But that's not what... Look, a few bottles of water and a couple cans of beans in some kind of underground bunker is not going to protect you from the zombie apocalypse. Because the zombie apocalypse is demons, demonic, from Kadera, in the Bible. Get a Bible. If you want to defeat the zombies, you're going to need more than a few bottles of water and a few cans of beans, a gas mask. You're going to need the Word of God. But be sure you have some coffee down in that bunker and stored. You'll need that as well. Okay, here's what you need. You might need a Bible, a prayer cloth, some anointing oil, a cross, a crucifix, and a lot of faith, whatever it takes. But what you need to know is you need the knowledge of what you're really dealing with. We've had another major attack of a zombie apocalypse moment in Philadelphia. I want to thank Reverend Gary of Kentucky and Brother Louie for getting this to me, as well as 5 other people. Let me read it. Cops say that a naked, bloody man gnawed on a woman's head during a wild neighborhood rampage. What? Are you serious? A Doylestown, Pennsylvania man who was naked and bleeding profusely gnawed on a woman's head while screaming like an animal during a wild neighborhood rampage, according to Pennsylvania State Police. The bizarre incident played out in the early morning hours of September the 7th over in Wayne County, Pennsylvania. According to the investigators, the incident began when a 20-year-old man named Richard Semino Jr. parked his car behind a home on Hudson Street, got out, and stripped down to his underwear. State police say that then he tried to break into a home, but was unsuccessful. So police say he then took off his underwear, as if that was going to make it better. What, give him superhuman strength? He took off his underwear and he continued down Hudson Street and broke into an unoccupied home. While inside the home, police say he walked up to the home's second floor and jumped out a window. What? The thief cometh forth to kill, steal, and destroy. But Jesus said, I've come to give you life and give it to you more abundantly. Okay, so he's naked now. He's broke into another house, went up to the second floor, and jumped out the window, causing severe injuries to his arms and legs when he hit the ground. But it didn't stop him. Bleeding profusely at this point, he then encountered 2 females who were walking down the street. State police say then he tackled one of the ladies, causing injury to her, and covered her in his blood. Investigators then say he began to gnaw at the victim's head while screaming like an animal. The 2 females were able to escape and to call the police. When the police arrived, they found him lying in the road, covered in blood and displaying delusional and confrontational behavior. Officers eventually were forced to tase him. That did not stop his bizarre behavior. As police say, he punched an EMT who was treating him in...
Uh-oh. It's loading. Let me check Dr. Deagle's real quick. We'll pause this. Well, we'll take a break for a moment. Let's see what's going on in GCN.
And it's going to deal with testing. In the book, it's going to deal with NUTRIMED protocols. It's going to deal with
not yet. Let's see if he's back.
Delusional and confrontational behavior. Officers eventually were forced to tase him. But that did not stop his bizarre behavior. As police say, he punched an EMT who was treating him in the face. Police were able to finally subdue him. He was taken to the Geisinger Community Medical Center for treatment of his severe injuries. It's not known immediately, if anything, whether he was under influence. Well, let me just tell you this right now. What you're dealing with here is demon spirits. You're not dealing with bath salts. Yeah, you're not dealing with that. Bath salts, alcohol, certain PCP drugs and drugs, they're not what's causing that behavior. All they are is the hinge on hell's gates, allowing the demon spirits from the pits of hell to enter into human beings who are allowing Satan to take over their minds, their soul, and their body. Now, has it ever happened before? Of course. Not just recently. Go back 2,000 years ago. Jesus encountered that demon. It was in that man. Here's what it says. Luke chapter 8, verse 26. I'll begin reading. And they arrived at the country of the Gadareans. Jesus had just got off the Sea of Galilee at Gadara, which is over against Galilee. And when he had went forth to the land, there he met out of the city a certain man which had devils a long time. He wore no clothes, neither abode in any house, but in the tombs. He was a zombie apocalypse. He lived among the dead, roaming around naked. And I believe, it doesn't say this in the scriptures, but I truly believe after prayer, that he lived among the dead, lived in the tombs, where they would, if you die back in those days, you were buried before sundown, they would put 50 and 60 bodies to a tomb. So anytime there was a fresh body buried, at night, he could go in and eat on the corpses. The bodies were still fresh. He lived among the dead. A zombie apocalypse demon. When he saw Jesus, he cried out, and he fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God Most High? I beseech thee, torment me not. For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of him, and for oftentimes he had been caught. They had kept him bound with chains and fetters, but he could break the bonds, and was driven of the devil into the wilderness. He could punch an EMT. He could jump out of a second floor window. He could still go down the street with broken arms and legs, overtake a woman, gnaw on her face, have to be restrained by police officers after being tased, and still have the energy and ability to punch an EMT in the face. You're talking about superhuman strength. And every one of these cases, you hear they strip down naked. They chew on people's faces, on people's bodies. They have to be tasered once, twice. They have to be shot 3 and 4 times. They can't be contained by one officer. Why? Why is that? And they're always stripping down naked. Why? It's the same demons that were in the demoniac of Gadara, the legions. Jesus spoke to him and said, What is your name? Speaking to the demons. And they said, Legion, for we are many. Let me tell you something. You're dealing, and so if you think that the Homeland Security is going to come up with a program or a plan to protect you from the zombie apocalypse, what? You're not going to get enough bottles of water, enough cans of beans. You can't get enough gas masks. You can't dig a bunker deep enough to deal with the demon spirits from hell. What you need is a Bible and some faith and the blood of Christ and the Word of God. Some anointing oil wouldn't be bad to have around. A cross, a prayer cloth, a crucifix. What? Something that you can retain the symbols of the suffering of Christ, who destroyed the devil at the cross of Calvary. Let me tell you what you need to do. Don't fear the one that can destroy your body, but fear the one that can destroy both body and soul in hell. I'm not afraid of zombie. I'm not afraid of anything that creeps and crawls on the planet, because I know I'm washed in the precious blood of the Lamb. And I have power to tread over all serpents and scorpions and all every power of the enemy. Are you saved?
Wow. Okay now. We are legion, many, or whatever they say. You know what? I've seen that also in that movie Knight Rider. The one with Nicolas Cage. They did a whole scene out of that. Alright, let's check on Dr. Deagle real quick. If I can do it.
Use digest these and watch what happens. It's amazing. And
oh, not yet.
The symptoms occur hour and a half, 2 hours after eating.
Okay, he's still doing his NUTRIMEDICAL report. I'm waiting for earth changes. Alrighty then. I can give. Let me give you some other headlines from Paul Begley 34's channel. Let's see what else he has on here. Let me go in here. There's some other breaking news going on. While we're waiting. Doesn't Anonymous say the same thing also? We are legion or something? I don't know. I don't know how good that is. Let's see. Alrighty. Let's go in here. Let's see. Breaking news. There's a bomb threat. University of Texas. Also, Tunisia, Sudan. There was a problem with the Sudan embassy. I'm going to assume it's the U.S. embassy over there because of that movie. Also, I think there's another embassy. Let me see if I can find it. I think Egypt is having a problem with that embassy over there also. Bangladesh. U.S. embassy swarmed and attacked in Bangladesh. Heads up with the U.S. embassies because of that movie. Alrighty then, let's see what's going on with Dr. Deagle. He should be coming on any minute. Let's get rid of that. Let's move on. Uh-oh.
And download before.
Okay, we have a commercial. We're getting ready to do. Let's move this. There we go. NUTRIMEDICAL report. Earth changes, the last hour of the show. Let's see what's going on here. Lower that.
They've been available.
We're ready. You can watch this show and get stuff done like you need to do. And then what you can do is just use this like a radio today.
See, it's 6.
Alrighty. So that was your breaking news for today. Now we're waiting on the
if you love to
waiting for him to come in. We're gonna catch it right at the beginning. This is good. Do it, relax, kick back, or get some kind of housework done, but don't just stare at the screen. It's not really gonna change, okay? Use it like a radio program.
get dense hue. Visit her again.
Alright, he's not back yet. Now what's happened to the phone?
That's a 6. Organics.
Alright, still commercial. Hang in there. I try to do this live.
Welcome back to the NUTRIMEDICAL report for Hour 3, our Civil Defense Preparedness Earth Changes Hour, and we have our experts. John Morrow has some very important news, and Morrison will be joined later with Christina Consolo on radiation Fukushima. Also, Earth changes occurring with the release of very foul sulfur-like material around the world, many places, including the Salton Sea here in California. These are often a warning sign of earthquakes that are impending. And Alexander Bachman as well later on in the hour. John, what's the latest news?
Well, in addition to what we talked about privately, I got some breaking news in the last hour. But what we talked about privately earlier today was the fact, and it's been confirmed from 3 independent sources now, that there may still be this week a confrontation on the Pacific Ocean just west of San Francisco between the People's Liberation Army Navy, which is the Chinese Navy, and the United States Navy. We don't know any more than that from my sources other than the confrontation did take place and may still be taking place. You and I talked privately about your thoughts on why the Chinese would be doing this regarding their economy and how it's not growing at the rate it should.
Yeah, the linkage is this. China has a lot of very good engineers and scientists, but their economy wouldn't grow at all if the globalists didn't, and the insurance companies and the governments didn't, in a sense, mandate the tremendous amount of pension funds and insurance money to be spent internationally to be actually hiring at 6.5 times less wage Chinese engineers and workers. And what they've done is shipped a lot of our businesses. 50,000 factories have closed in America, gone to China, Indonesia, India, etc. And what that's done, what's happening now in this last year is the brakes are on. Their economy has dropped, so now they are generating 10 new employees that are qualified with training, education, but only one job per month now. Their economy, in terms of their trade balance, has dropped from 22.47% increase last August of 2011 to only 2.7% this August. So China is on the verge, and by the way, if their economy crashes, which could happen very quickly, they're a production economy. They do not have a large middle class. They don't have a large, if you want to call it, to sell their goods. So they're actually storing them. They have giant warehouses where they store the excess they produce because they can close the factories and just send people home.
That's incredible.
What will happen in China, basically, the linkage is this. There's a $240 billion oil, gas, and ethylene contract. The largest source for ethylene to make plastics to make Christmas toys and decorations for you, believe it or not, is Iran. Iran supplies the ethylene. The second largest gas producer in the world is Iran. They don't even have factories because we blocked it for over 35 years. Have their own gasoline, so they have to buy the refined oil products back from China. Now, what's happening is China, if we attack Syria and Iran, they won't get their requisite oil and ethylene, and their industries will grind to a great extent to a halt. This is considered an economic attack on the giant nation of China, which, by the way, right now is not number 2, it's number 1 in terms of industrial output on the planet. America's not number 1 anymore, we're number 2.
That doesn't surprise me. Well, the second update, about an hour ago, a very good friend that I've known for 24 years, tightly connected with high levels in the military, he says that the remodel going on at the White House, allegedly to do electrical upgrades, has actually been a project to build a shelter 60 to 100 feet deep beneath the White House, part of a project which will be expanded to be large enough to have the entire White House staff in this shelter, and of course it'll be connected to the Underground Railroad that's underneath Washington, D.C. as well. The point being, the powers that be don't feel there'll be enough time to evacuate their people, and they want a place where they can just take an elevator, get down in the shelter, and then be evacuated by train out of Washington.
By train to Mount Weather and other places, Mount Weather, Virginia.
Mount Weather would be the logical location, right?
Yeah. Now, that makes sense. I think that's a good idea. I think what we're really dealing with is the linkage is this. If we attack Syria, Iran will send missiles at Riyadh, Saudi Arabia almost immediately. And this is not going to be like a small arms war. It'll be a missile war immediately. It'll also be a jihadist war, which means the Muslims who are already embedded here, and again, we're going to have Alexander Bachman later, but I know this is a fact going right back for years, talking to many people like George Groover, Henry Groover, and other people who've had prophetic visions, that we have embedded Muslims here, many of them paid for by Iran and by these Muslim countries, to have embedded in North America, Mexico, and the United States, and they're ready to do mayhem if we attack their countries.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at the Drudge Report today, Dr. Bill, you'll see there's been multiple incidents in universities around the United States of threats of terrorism. In Austin, Texas, they evacuated the entire campus because of threats of bombs. A number of incidents around the United States. I think we're just getting started on this.
Well, I think what's going to come out of it, and believe it or not, the globalists want this. They actually want it because most people don't realize, here's a question. What do you think the civil detention camps are that they built, like at Camp Pendleton and elsewhere? Who do you think they're for?
Well, I think they could be either refugee camps or they could be detention centers for people they consider to be enemy, which could be Islamic people. They could be.
My source is that these are not for illegal immigrants from Mexico. The number 1 reason for them being overbuilt with all this high security is for Muslims. That's number 1, 2, and 3. When you get down to number 4 reason, yeah, they want to put some illegals that may be, prone to violence. Most illegals that are working in America are working because they're trying to support their family back in Mexico.
Right.
A small percentage are criminals. It's very small. They're usually very strong family people, and we don't have a rational policy for the Republicans. So what I see happening is very unfortunate, because Romney and Ryan should win this election is handily over Obama. Not that we have, we don't have great alternatives to that, but they're certainly far better than Obama. But I'm very concerned that they may not win because the handling of a number of policies has been pretty bad.
It has been. It has been. Dr. Bill, I know you got a lot of guests waiting, and this remaining 45 minutes will fly by. So yeah. I'm going to bail out of here and let you work with Ann Morrison and Alexander and so forth.
Yeah, that's very important to kind of realize exactly what's happening in terms of the military strategy. The other thing I think that we're likely to be seeing is the government knows that natural disasters are about to strike. When all of this releases sulfur all over the planet at different places all across the Midwest and other countries.
You mean it's not dying fish?
No, it's not dying fish. This dying fish theory is a pile of as they say, what's rotting in Denmark is not dead fish on the dock. I'd
hate to see what a big pile of fish it would take to smell it from 100 miles away.
Right. What we're dealing with is release of hydrogen sulfide and other gases from deep in the bowels of the earth before a major superquake. So what's likely to happen is the San Andreas Fault is ready to rip. The Sea of Cortez hit a 7.6 last year. All on the San Andreas Fault. We are due for a big one.
You know, everybody on this panel can remember when earthquakes and volcanoes would be news maybe twice a year. Now it's weekly, if not daily.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
Ann and Dr. Bill, I'm going to bail out of here and let you guys carry the show because you got.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. By the way, you should listen to John's show at 7 to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, Republic Radio, thelibertyman.com. Thanks, John. And any emergency reports, give me a call and we'll get it up on our show.
Thank you.
John, was that confrontation with submarines?
I don't know. I would not be surprised, but I simply don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck.
My guess is it had something to do with probably some missile firing, because there was some suspicion off of Point Mugu that incident that happened was actually a Chinese missile off Point Mugu, California, which is north of L.A. And our missile defense picked it up in Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is where the real space program is. Saw that missile and eventually didn't realize that the Chinese submarine was off our coast, which basically we can reach out and touch someone. In other words, the Chinese are saying, like, don't mess with us. We have pretty advanced technology, and if you do, we'll crawl right up your back doorstep. And that's what they did. Amazing. Back in a moment with Ann Morrison. We're going to be joined with Christina Consolo and Alexander Bachman. Christina will be dropping on the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned. Preparedness, Civil Defense, Earth Changes. Amazing reports.
All right. Well, now he's on break, so I can't play the commercials. So just go ahead and do stuff. I'm going to be doing stuff around the house, and I'll turn it back up when he's back. Alrighty then.
It can become.
Oh, it's still a commercial.
Don't let your.
Oh, still a commercial. Are you asleep? Here, look at this ticket again. I think it's a winner. I'll leave it on the sink. Good night.
B is only 29. And you don't have a.
Oh, not yet.
are made right.
Long commercials. Long commercials.
Bridge.com. .com. Are you tired of searching for
We're
great
back.
talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report, and you have a report regarding the Salton Sea. The dead fish theory, which is that dead fish are, and the wind is whipping up the waters there, causing air quality even as far away as Los Angeles, 100 miles away, I think is a dead fish theory. I think we're dealing with bowels of the earth presaging, as Maria Consola will come up at the bottom of the hour. She has some historical reports that before any major quake around the world, you can smell sulfur. In other words, you smell the breath of the dragon before the earth starts to shake, rattle, and roll. And but there's going to be some major problems if they do what you're mentioning here to the air quality. Tell us all about.
Well, you remember over in Italy when the seismologist detected radon, and he says, there's going to be a big earthquake. And they laughed at him. A week later, they had, 50,000 dead or 10,000 dead or something because there was a big earthquake. Well, the same thing happens with sulfur, hydrogen sulfide, and that's the rotten egg smell that they were smelling 150 to 200 miles away from the Salton Sea. Now, everybody agrees that the smell came from the Salton Sea. But it's like they don't talk to the weatherman. They said, well, the fact that it blew that far surprised us. You know, the connection between the National Weather Service and the geologists is tenuous at best. Anyway, what they're going to
They missed those classes in university, I guess.
Actually, they slept through them. The Salton Sea is expected to drop drastically. It's supposed to be maintained by the Imperial Irrigation District, and what they've decided to do is they're going to build a dam in the center of it, across the center of it, and then they'll keep water in the northern part of it, and they're going to let the southern part dry out. And the stench from that will be accompanied by ultrafine dust particles. And if exposed to desert winds, it would produce the worst particulate air pollution in the Western Hemisphere. Not just in the United States, not just in Arizona, but in the Western Hemisphere.
So in other words, the southwest United States is going to stink.
Well, not only that, hydrogen sulfide will kill you.
Yeah, in fact, do you know what's the knockdown percentage of parts per million for hydrogen sulfide?
It's very low.
5 parts per million. In other words, 1 or 2 parts per million to smell. 5, your nose is going to hit the ground and you're going to break your nose because you're going to be unconscious before you even hit the ground. That's how hard it is.
Yeah, and I did hear that some of the schools, some of the students over near San Diego were complaining. But, you know, complaining about it and doing something about it are two different things. If they're getting hydrogen sulfide that far away, I would have expected death reports. And I haven't seen any deaths attributed to this hydrogen sulfide.
Yeah, but the dosage, the level that you need in order to smell. The human nose is so sensitive to hydrogen sulfide, you can get parts per trillion you can smell. It's only when you get to parts per billion that it gets knocked down.
Well, I know, but it's 200 miles away, so I would have expected some deaths over in Arizona.
Oh, yeah, you mean in the immediate area?
Yeah.
Well, my guess is that it's probably venting, and that vented air is moving up in a laminar flow and then going up in higher atmosphere and then coming back down again. My guess is it may not be creeping on the ground, it may, because hydrogen sulfide is pretty light gas.
Well, yeah. In one article I read, they said, you remember when I talked to you about the supersaturated lakes that occurred in Africa, where the carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide supersaturated the water?
Yes.
and then for one reason or another, they were disturbed, and they, what is termed turned over. They said that what happened was the Salton Sea turned over because of that seismic activity in Brawley.
Exactly, yeah. And those kind of things can be really devastating, can't they?
Well, yeah, because although hydrogen sulfide is a light gas, carbon dioxide is not, and it'll smother you while you sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not good. Now, we have Alexander Bachman joining us, too, here. Alexander, tell us the latest news you have.
And, well, just a quick comment on the Salton Sea issue. You know, we're down here in Baja. The same happened, you know, after the Passover quake on April 4th, 2010. We have reports from the citizens south of Mexicali that lived through the 7.4 mega quake that we had on Easter Sunday, remember?
Yes.
And
we filmed it here, and by the way, in North County, San Diego, a couple hundred miles away. I think it was 250 miles away. That moved the ground like we're on a giant rubber sheet. It was crazy. And it was very loud.
Baja California separated about 3 meters away from the North American plate. So, just in that quake alone. Now the thing is that people reported sulfuric acid coming, smells of sulfur and sulfuric gases going in through their kitchen floor. So,
yeah, in other words, this could be, it could actually be a physical hazard. We should actually have our fire departments probably testing with sniffers if there's a surge of ground-based hydrogen sulfide, etc., because you could have a major release, say, to a shopping center or a building or a school, and then all of a sudden you can have a lot of people all of a sudden just get very ill or die.
Well, I mean, just follow the trace, the animal die-offs, the kill-offs, the species going down. For example, remember that in March, I think it was, in Mount Shasta, near Mount Shasta in Shasta County, the entire underground water deposits disappeared overnight.
Really?
After the entire county.
So in other words, the groundwater disappeared. It went into a cavern.
Disappeared.
Yeah, so in other words, it evacuated to a cavern. When we have Christina join us at the bottom of the hour, she'll talk about this because the sulfur releases, these giant sinkholes appearing like in Louisiana and elsewhere, the Earth is changing dramatically. We had an interesting discussion the other day with Stan Deo on Tuesday, the first hour, and people should listen to that program. We talked about some pretty technical things, but if you listen slowly, you'll understand that the Earth is going through some really cataclysmic Earth changes right now. And this is not a theory. We're actually observing it happening as it's happening. We're heading into an ice age. We're heading to a change where there's a lot more volcanism. The ozone layer is thinning, and we're not making it any better when we put nanoparticle aluminum up in the upper atmosphere and punch a hole in it over Greenland, which causes a Greenland lake because of strobing of ultraviolet light on July 12th thereafter. And some of this stuff is pretty... If somebody told you to write this as a script for a sci-fi movie, you'd say, nobody's going to read that. Nobody's going to believe it. But they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And oddities such as the magnetic anomaly down in the southern Indian Ocean, for example.
Yeah, in southern Atlantic, 3 million square miles. It's getting closer and closer to the surface of the Earth. If that gets so close, places like Rio de Janeiro and southern Brazil, that came near the ground, it would not be compatible with life. I mean, people don't understand it. If this came out to the ground surface over southern and South America, it could kill millions of people in a matter of hours.
Precisely, and when we know that NASA knows about these 4 gaping holes in the magnetosphere,
they found those, I think, 5 years ago. 2007, they wouldn't report the data for a year, and they had 5 satellites go through this giant gaping hole, which over 24,000 miles is 5 times the diameter of Earth in the Earth's magnetosphere, the Bolshoi magnetosphere. This is not theory out there. These are astronomical facts that we have to face. Back in a moment.
Wow. Wow. Not good news, is it? I'm still cleaning up. I'll put the radio back on when they're back. Righty then. Ooh. can't run the commercials. The commercials are a copyright infringement. But then I guess they wouldn't really care because they would just be having free advertising. Let's see.
The iodine.
Nope. Let's see. Just back.
With micro.
Not yet.
Hi, this is...
Yes, you're a pretty kitty. Yes, you are. You're a pretty kitty boy. See if they're back yet.
237.
Nope. Any minute though. I can check it.
Yo, starts here.
And we're coming back. I want to explain a couple things about the galaxy that most people may not be aware of. The center of the galaxy, of every galaxy, is 2.5% of the mass of every galaxy. There is a recycling of energy and matter that comes out of that through various bursts of energy at super high frequencies that comes out of that collapsing mass. In other words, it doesn't just keep on eating and eating and getting bigger and bigger. It actually sends out that energy through what's called torsion field, which is fifth-dimensional wormholes that actually go to our stars and our planets and actually feed energy and matter back to those planets. So there's a white hole that feeds from the black hole, and it does it on a periodic basis. Okay? In other words, think of the planets and stars as little piglets, and the black hole in the center is the mother pig. Okay? It's consuming all of these stars and everything, but it's also spewing out energy in different bursts at very high frequencies. But the change in the torsion field happens because the fifth-dimensional space changes, and you pass south of the galactic plane to north, changes the movement of the plasma in the stars and in the planet. Our planet's a nuclear reactor with a crust on it and a thin blue line of air. So when you think of that, it's like pretty remarkable. I mean, anybody that realized what miraculous it is that we are alive in this thin blue line of air, literally boiling in the universe with gamma bursts and cosmic background radiation and the solar wind. I mean, if the magnetosphere was gone for half an hour you're outside with the sun, it wouldn't be your friend, you'd be dead. So Ed, let's talk about this for a minute, because people need to understand just how fragile the idea of life on our planet is.
Right. Well, the Earth is composed of a core, an iron nickel core that is rotating like a torus, and that is what is creating the magnetic lines of force that we call the magnetosphere, and they come out at the North Pole and go in at the South Pole, or vice versa. On top of that is the mantle, and it's semi-molten, and it's got kinks in it, so it's not just like a liquid. It's a liquid with chunks in it.
And it also has rivers. In other words, there's literally channels of magma that are semi-liquid, almost like viscous, like jello, and there's chunks of semi-solid where literally rivers of magma that flow in specific pathways through the mantle.
Right, and then on top of that is the crust, And the crust is what we live on. And so
the crust is two different types, though. We have continental crust, just like what I call, the best would be pineapple slices. And think of the oceans as being a thinner crust, where the magma is coming up out of the center of the mid-oceanic ridges and flowing out at a period of time, and then diving under the continental plates, or we call the pineapple slices, which are the continents. So there's a constant recycling of the mantle material that's actually rising up through the center of the ocean, through the mid-oceanic ridge, which is 23,000-mile long radiator. I call it radiator of these 23 million venting structures as high as a skyscraper. And then the magma shoots out and then gradually moves along, and you can see a zebra pattern there if you make magnetometer, which they did after the Second World War. They're looking for submarines and U-boats. They discovered that there's a zebra pattern where the magnetic flux lines change back and forth, because roughly every 11,000 years, 11,500 years, the magnetic flux field shifts, and about every 700,000 years it shifts a lot. It's not a complete shift. What we're about to face, though, is much more than just a magnetic shift. We're about to face moves through the galactic plane, where the actual dynamo of the Earth's magnetic field is actually changing gears. And this is the same area that also has a lot of debris, which is the asteroid belt, where the asteroid struck the Earth and knocked off the dinosaurs. We're actually going through the same cycle, at the same part of the cycle as the dinosaurs 62 million years ago.
Yeah, but they don't think the asteroid that's hitting for Earth that we think is going to hit in mid-February is more of a, they call it a torsion scale of 4, which means it'll only be in a regional event.
Oh yeah, that's not that. I don't think that the asteroid, big rocks are part of the problem. I think the biggest thing that's going to be a danger to us is the loss of our shields, like Star Trek. Do we have Maria Consolo there?
Yes.
Christina Consolo. Christina, we were talking earlier in the show about the sulfur smell, and you've got some really remarkable articles. It fits in perfectly with what Ann mentioned and Alexander Bachman. Can you tell us all about the sulfur smell that predates or warns of major superquakes? And historically, you sent me a really interesting research. You do great research that shows all the different dates when, this is not rotting fish. So the rotting fish theory is a dead theory, okay? This is the Earth giving us a warning. You're going to have a big quake, Southern California, in northern Mexico. You're going to have a big superquake real soon.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. A list that I compiled for a show on Thursday with some of the historical strong sulfur smells that had been mentioned in literature as far back as 1703 in Italy. The exact quote was, "The earth here and there observed a split and cracks from which streams the evil odors of sulfur and bitumen, and men in Anquilla most worthy of trust write that in many places after the earthquake, sulfur and fire issued from the opened earth." This has been documented as occurring prior to many earthquakes, including the great earthquake of San Francisco, and I believe it was 1908, and then the New Madrid series or sequence. In Hungary in 1763, it was reported, as well as a rise in the river Danube, and the river appeared to be boiling prior to the earthquake. In Santa Rosa in 1908, Lawson and others noted a strong smell of sulfur 2 days prior to the earthquake, and one by another famous researcher, Charles Cobies, who actually warned his family of another quake then subsequently when he smelled a recurrence of this. And southern Germany in 1911, same thing.
Yeah, I think also the superquake that occurred down in Missouri, I think it was it was in 1811. That big superquake that struck there, which is actually the biggest earthquake on the continental United States, they smelled sulfur all before that superquake, didn't they?
Yes. And it was so perplexing is, China, Japan, the Soviet Union, Germany paid much more attention to this as an earthquake precursor, the outgassing of various materials like methane and sulfur gases and radon. In fact, Japan even has a laboratory of earthquake chemistry where they study this.
We know the reason is in North America, unless the info news babes on FO or Fox News Network, called FOF for false, or MSNBC, where or these other foolish networks they call the garbage news network, GNN, where they actually, if they don't put it on, it's not real. It doesn't actually really matter. So we have a culture of what I call Google geniuses, where if you can Google it and find the answer, it's probably true. Or if it's not in the news, it actually is probably a lie, which is pretty strange.
Yeah, the U.S. is really far behind in this field of earthquake prediction, and it was actually...
It doesn't need to be so.
As far back as in China 3,000 years ago.
Okay, let me explain the things that we could use to predict besides animals. You can see the torsion field. We have torsion field imaging in space. These are classified projects. The torsion field, which is literally the movement of the magnetic flux lines, you can actually see them with these imaging techniques, and when those flux lines move, they can tell. They also have a magnetic satellite that the Japanese put up 3.5 years ago. Those flux lines, right before the Santiago superquake that occurred a few years ago, they could see the South Pole magnetically disappeared. It was like, where is it? It's not there. So these things happen beforehand. Here in California, they have these ground level, what we call telluric current sensors that actually sense the telluric currents flowing in the earth. And if there's a current change across the fault lines, they know something's about to give. There's actually going to be a release of piezoelectric energy. So there's no reason. We actually have the science. We don't put the money into it. That's the problem. Or if it's classified, one agency doesn't talk to the other. So the guys in DARPA and the space-based projects that are all black
wow,
are not going to talk to to FEMA or anybody else about a coming quake. It's classified. We're not talking to you.
Don't know if he's coming back or not. We'll wait and see.
.84.
Oh, not back yet.
Alarm provides better.
Let's check on this.
3-7.
Nope. We're waiting. We are standing by.
And builder.
Good feeling they're over.
It's from Gibson's.
Stop. Report. Okay, let's check it. See where we're at.
Welcome back, and Christina, let's tie this together, panel, and figure out what's happening. The timeline is we're going to have major superquakes. The seismic report, in fact, I posted yesterday, indicates from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, one of the good things JASCO did was made sure that they had to respond to the seismic report, and it shows that roughly a third of our nuclear reactors, 104 in the United States, are within strike distance of a major earthquake fault line zone. That means Diablo Canyon and San Onofre are, a nuclear reactor non gratis. In other words, we need to shut the damn things down, take the radioactive waste away before something really bad happens. Most of the reactors being around the New Madrid fault system, which are also releasing nasty smelling gases and showing lots of these we call pre-superquake tremors, are indicating there's going to be a big quake on the New Madrid fault system too. So we're just waiting for an America in Fukushima. We also have in Japan, Mount Fuji is now the magma dome, and the Japanese know this, is filling. This is one of the nastiest volcanoes on the earth, and the Japanese have known for millennia. When Fuji goes, they don't love it, they fear it as a monster. They used to think it was a monster. And when unleash it can literally cover ash for hundreds of square miles radially away from Mount Fuji. This is going to be devastating. And it also, there's a fault line running right from Mount Fuji through the Chiba factory, Chiba nuclear reactor site, which is again as big or bigger than Fukushima. If that happens, they're going to have major problems there on Chiba reactors.
And also, Dr. Deagle, hi Consuelo, we have Tadahiro Matsushita, who was just assassinated. He was found hanging inside his home over there in Japan. Japan's finance minister.
You're talking about Mr. Corruption, right? Tell us the story, Tell us a little story about that, because apparently he was involved with kind of like the backroom deal guy, and he knew too much, so what they do in Japan is they don't double tap you with bullets, and they don't make a kill, they suicide you. In other words, they get you to write a suicide note and they hang you in your room, or they do something that indicates a suicide. This is a strange culture. Because the reason is the police don't investigate suicides.
No, they don't.
They do investigate murders, but in Japan, if it's a suicide, we know, investigate, no problem. It's suicide, obvious. See, no problem, and that's it. Nobody's waiting to whether the Yakuza did it or somebody because they had a contract killer. If you suicide in Japan, police no check nothing. And that's the reason why the suicide rate's so high. It's not because they're so nice. It's because if you piss somebody off over there, they're going to Arkansas you like they do in America around Hillary and Bill Clinton.
And they want to restart the reactor, so basically that's why these people are getting whacked.
Yeah, the new director of the reactors that control the Daiichi and the Daini reactors. They want to start reactor 5 and 6 at Daiichi. They want to start all the Daini reactors. These guys are sitting right on fault lines, and their number of earthquakes has increased 500% since last March, a year and a half ago. Things aren't quieting down. Earthquake center is like really rocking and rolling. And the Japanese know when they have these tremors, like, what the hell's next? Well, what's next is bad. Okay? There's a little bit of a joke, There's bad news and really bad news. The bad news is everything I've told you that's really bad is the mild part. The really bad news we don't actually know yet.
No, it's the new normal.
The new normal is really, really, really bad. And what we can't anticipate is, and this is what I would suspect, in the next number of months we're going to have a big strike in the San Andreas Fault in California and New Madrid. We're going to have Mount Fuji blow. We're going to have these major quakes. And talk about this one down in Nicaragua. This plume of ash is one of the biggest ones you mentioned that you've seen in many years in Nicaragua. And this is big enough that it actually could blot out the sun and actually change the climate of the planet.
Yeah,
it's happening right as we speak right now. Mount Fuego, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it wasn't even on the map to erupt. I mean, they weren't even considering it. They had a big tourist center there, and it erupted, and they had to evacuate. Well, they've evacuated so far about 50,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, and last time it blew like 8 or 10 years ago, you know, even a reporter died just because of the ash. So that one's a dangerous one in itself.
And
nobody's talking about Iceland. Remember now, Iceland's not is they have the Eyjafjallajökull and the Hekla volcanoes. Hekla means in I guess Danish, Norwegian, Icelandic. It means the gates of hell. And when these volcanoes go, they're sulfur volcanoes. They put up also. It basically is an exfoliant. It's much more efficient, in fact, than Agent Orange at exfoliating, killing foliage. It's also extremely toxic to your cells and mitochondria. So there's over 200 parts per million of fluoride in this, as well as it's also containing uranium and other radioisotopes. So the ash that comes from Iceland is radioactive and super high in fluoride as well. And the nanoparticles, the shards of it will rip the hell out of a jet engine. So a jet engine that might get 2,000 air miles, 2,000 air miles before a check or something, will get like torn out in about like 20 times faster. So you can have an engine burnout or flare out where you're flying through a cloud and all of a sudden, oop, and unless you have what's called a special type of radar, you can't see these little clouds of little nanoparticle glass shards that will rip your engine apart.
And you have one at Krakatoa about to blow any moment now?
Krakatoa, by the way, when Krakatoa blew, it actually caused, I think it was 1 or 2 summers where there was no, the snow stayed on the ground for, I think, 1 or 2 summers back in, was it 1804?
Yes. No, a little bit later, I think, but it was the loudest thing ever heard on the planet Earth.
Yeah, Krakatoa when it blew, that was up in Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
And Java or Sumatra when it blew.
Yeah, it's Indonesian volcanic change, but it's all on alert. I mean, 19 of the volcanoes are on alert status right now.
Now in Japan, there's 109 volcanoes. Like, whoa! Do you know what volcanoes on land are on the planet? What place they are?
Underwater.
No, I'm talking about on land.
Oh.
The largest number in any one area, state, country, whatever.
Indonesia.
Oregon.
Well, here's another bad news. In Mexico, the state that has more volcanoes, sleeping volcanoes in Mexico is Baja California.
Right, yeah. Baja, actually, the whole Baja was actually created volcanically.
Yeah, we got 22 volcanoes right here.
Yeah. It's an interesting place. The whole Sea of Cortez was created volcanically. That's one of the reasons why there's so much life there, because all the volcanic minerals. The Sea of Cortez is a massive place where the whales come from all over the world to actually migrate there, because with all those minerals, all the plant life and everything, it's like a wonderland for the sea creatures, for tuna and for large whales and so on.
Exactly. That's why Krakatoa is very important. I mean, there's a very good PDF set that I have. I can email anybody that wants it. Just email me at abba@alexanderbachman.com. On Krakatoa and the tongues of fire, it's prophecy research with respect to the activation of the Pacific Ring of Fire. I mean, it's going on right now, and it's just a matter of time for the entire Ring of Fire to ignite, and we will really see the firework display.
Thinking about that, let's give your website, AlexanderBachman, BACKMAN.com.
Mm-hmm.
Christina Consolo, your website is?
It's FukushimaFacts.com.
Now, the Fukushima situation, things are not getting any better. In fact, what I'm seeing is my radiation detector is now spiking very rapidly up into the 70s, which hasn't done like 6 months. And then it drops really quickly and back to the 30s, 40s, but it's not dropping back to background, back to 22, something like that. So we're seeing what we call burst releases. Now, what's happening, and I talked to Arnie Gunderson's wife, Maggie, what what Arnie's concerned about right now is you have to balance between pumping nitrogen in to stop the critical reactions, and which will stop the hydrogen generation, or if you don't pump enough nitrogen in, you'll get hydrogen-generated explosions. And those hydrogen-generated explosions, now we've got proof, they actually can produce a nuclear explosion, which is why top of cooling pool 3, which is a MOX cooling pool, had a nuclear explosion there and a detonation 1,000 miles per hour. What's going on with the reactors is they're spewing out more radiation. It's being nasty. They have no idea where the corium is. There's no international action by Obama or the international community. The Japanese keep on lying and lying and lying. They actually have schools where it's unbelievable the amount of radiation these kids are exposed to. Half of the children in Japan now have thyroid nodules in northern Japan. Half of the children.
It's genocide.
And they're not growing. They can't produce growth hormone. These children are putting on minimal or no weight at all. They're not growing. A year and a half, no growth, or very minimal.
Even if things stayed stable at that plant, they're going to run out of workers in the next couple of years.
5 years, they say. 5 years. And by the way, that'll be the last of the workers. They're going to run out long before then. Especially if their health, they have major releases of radiation and their health gets so bad, because even if you're suicidal, all you'll be capable of doing is drooling and staring if you get hit with enough radiation. So yeah, it's very grim. We better pray to Most High God to give us direction in this, because I call this the year 2 PF, post Fukushima, and this is a part of my trilogy book that will be coming out later this fall called Clay and Iron, Time of Sorrows. We are now in.
Well, I believe that's it. And I'm going to publish this. Enjoy it. Have a wonderful Friday night.